when we open the books and we sing the carols and we start just seeing that Christmas energy, something changes within you, doesn't it? Don't you open to connect to a higher level? I know I was shopping, gosh, a month ago, and they had Christmas decorations out at Macy's. And I was with someone, and we both just got saucer-eyed. Found the perfect little decoration. And there was this beautiful love that just opened in my heart for this wonderful little decoration, which I did not buy because it was early in the season. Of course, it was not there when I did go to buy. But I was aware of my heart opening. And I thought, why am I so happy to see this little decoration? I had not one happy Christmas as a child. Not one. And why is this decoration so cool to me? And I thought, it really doesn't matter my experience, because when I see that, I touch the hope and the joy and the love of all mankind, of everybody's Christmas, of all the beauty of how we stop for a minute to celebrate God and Jesus Christ on the whole planet. And it was just like, that is so way cool. No one takes that from you. Even if you don't have as a child, what you want in family consciousness, but it's still in our family consciousness. Do you know what I'm saying? It's in the big family consciousness. So it's wonderful for us all to just surrender into that beautiful feeling, that hope and that expectation, that love, that almost celestial light that lifts us above what our human experience has been, And we can lift into that at any moment. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay. I wanted to start off by sharing with you a reading from, this is White Eagle, It's the Way of the Sun. This was channeled, I think, in the 40s by Grace Cook. She's talking about Christmas. White Eagle is talking about Christmas. At this time of year, a heavenly outpouring of love and wisdom comes from the Holy Blessed Trinity, Father, Mother, Son. An outpouring to which all men will respond according to their sensitivity or degree of spiritual evolution. Each aspect of the Godhead has a particular influence on humanity, on man's spirit, his soul, and his body. And at Christmas time in particular, the Divine Mother, as well as the Divine Child, pours forth love and joy and the sweetness of the spiritual life. For this reason, the human heart in everyone becomes stimulated, and there is a desire to think of others, to make contacts which will renew goodwill and kindliness among all. Never close your heart to this great inflow of the light from God at Christmas time. Isn't that beautiful? We feel that beautiful love of God. We feel that light. But what if Jesus hadn't come? Would things be different? What was the energy that he brought? Well, I'm going to share a story that I heard 100 years ago. And I don't share it very often, but it was Paul Harvey. Wasn't he the rest of the story? And is he still alive? Okay, so young people will not know who he is. But he used to talk on the radio. And he would tell these very interesting stories. So one of his stories was this. And his stories were apparently true. So I don't know the man of whom he speaks. I believe he was a famous man, but I don't remember his name, so I won't even attempt to guess. The story is this. There was a man who was living on a farm, probably the Midwest somewhere, and his wife was very diligent about going to church. She went to church all the time, loved God all the time. She would always try to get him to go, and he said, "No, that is not for me. That's for you. That is not for me. Take the kids and go." So one Christmas Eve, she was taking the children. She loaded them in the station wagon. The station wagon. To take them to church. And it was, as she was loading them up, the weather was changing very rapidly. And it was starting to get very, very cold. A storm was coming in. And so she had taken off and to drive the kids to church. And the wind started whipping around, and he went out to the barn to make sure all the animals were safe. When he was outside, he noticed there was a small flock of birds that were getting caught in the wind. and they shouldn't have been there, they should have already migrated, and they were just spinning. They didn't know what to do. And so he opened the barn doors and he got a lantern and he started swinging the lantern, and he kept saying, you're trying to show them to come into the barn, they would be safe to come into the barn. And he had the thought in his mind, I wish I could be a bird for just a second so I could talk to them and tell them how to make themselves safe. And right when he had that thought, he heard the church bells ring. And he got it. He understood in that moment that that was the mission of Jesus Christ. To bring that beautiful divine light, the spiritual language and spiritual truth, into a world where people did not have the language or the energy to connect. And apparently this man went on to become extremely successful. He never missed a day of church from that point forward. So, I think the example, have y'all heard it before? I think the example tells us a why. Tells us what this whole energy of Christ coming was about. He came to tell us that we were more than we thought we were. To remind us we aren't just birds caught in a storm. That we are spiritual beings, and we have a Heavenly Father and a Mother. We have life beyond this space. But how do we even know that until we stop and try to connect? Do you know? How do we know that? How do you take someone who knows nothing about spirit and tell them and teach them a spiritual language? So, when Jesus came to the earth, if you'll remember with me, the people connected to God via representatives. They connected to God. If they were Jewish, they connected to God via the priests, right? Sacrifices. But they had to go through the hierarchy. And if you were pagan or another faith, you connected to whichever God you needed in that moment. There were so many of them, and through the priests as well, of that particular God or temple or whatever. But the idea of having that personal connection with spirit that you could explore right in any given moment was not there. And this is what he came to bring us. Everybody breathe. Jesus brought an energy that gave us a common language and a common connection between man and God. We needed an outer demonstration of our own inner conviction. You know, when you talk to people and you really ask them seriously if they really believe that there is something beyond this life, if they have not been totally taught differently, their answer will always be yes. Because there's a knowing that there's greater. There's a knowing that something lives beyond this moment. And I've shared with you many times when I was in kindergarten, my awareness, sitting in my parents' car getting ready to go to church. And I was in kindergarten because we were in Denver, and we moved to Washington for first grade, Washington State. So I'm 5 years old, getting my little money, holding it, knowing, feeling my head expand and knowing this cannot be all there is. You cannot be born here, grow up to be my grandparents, and die, and that be all there is. It cannot be. This is not true. And I knew it with my little 5-year-old brain. And I was getting ready to go to a church that was going to teach me otherwise. But I already knew. So no matter what they said, it didn't matter. We know deep inside we are greater. We know that. How do we access it? What is the language? What is the way to open us up? When he came, he told us that it was okay to be God's child. Spirit was the connection, and the universal language was love. This is what he said to everybody. Now, I want to go over just a few things, because I think everything I've said so far, you guys go, I already knew that, right? Knew that, no problem, knew that. So, when Jesus came, he never disconnected from God. He kept that divine connection no matter what was happening. He realized that. The intuition was a direct line. It was a direct line to spirit. He saw people as spirit. He saw their souls. He told them what was inside them. He never disconnected. That is the gift he gave us. And yet when we do our walk, what do? Yeah, I'm doing my meditation in the morning and I'm cool, and then what do? I might disconnect a little bit, huh? If I go to work and something gets challenging, instead of going, let me ask Spirit about that, I might go, well, wait a minute. We need to duke this out till somebody wins, you know? Do we not go in and out of that divinity? Yes. Even though we know we are eternal, and we know that we're so much greater than what we know. So I wanted to share just a few things that he did to remind us of what we're capable of. Ready? He always saw what was at the soul level, and he never dishonored the people. Now, he might tell them the truth. But he never dishonored them. When he was studying, and even when it was important to his survival, he spoke the truth. He always spoke the truth. He spoke honestly about his relation to God. When he was a young man and he was learning, and somebody would teach him, because he studied with the Brahmins and the Buddhists, and he studied with the Jewish faith, the higher beings of that. Every time they said something, he would say to them, well, it seems to me that God would do blah, blah, blah. And they would all go, wow, that's amazing. How did you know that? And he would say to them, how do you not know that? It's in the air around you. How do you not know that? And when he was studying with the Brahmins, and he'd stayed with them for 4 years, and he was a young man, he's a teenager. I wanted to share this with you. He's a teenager, and they are explaining to him their faith, and he's been doing great with them for 4 years. He's having a great time. He's living in wealth, luxury, food, anything he wants, because he's this golden child. And they start explaining to him why God created different colored people. And what they understood in their way, there must be a reason God did this. So they explained to him how there was the white people, and the red people, and the yellow people, and the black people, and they couldn't talk to each other because everybody had a job to do. Do you see? And he didn't say or argue with them. He didn't say you're wrong or argue with them. He did this. He said nothing. He looked up to heaven and said, my Father God, who was and is and evermore shall be, who holds within your hands the scales of justice and right, who in boundlessness of love has made all men to be equal. The white, the black, the yellow, the red can look into your face and say, our Father God. Thou Father of the human race, I praise your name. And when he did this, they hit him and kicked him out of the temple. He's in a foreign country, he has nowhere to go. What do you think happened to him? The yellow and the black men said, come live with us. We will teach you. I mean, you can teach us. We will take care of you. You teach us. And he did. Because he was divine. Because survival was not as important as being God in love. Do you understand? How often do we quietly not even pray when we're up against something we don't necessarily agree with spiritually? Well, you don't have to pray out loud, but you can certainly shut your eyes and go, okay, I need to talk to God about this. God, divine intervention, please. And I remember when he was talking with the priests in the Jewish faith when he was older and starting to do his work, and he's used to being criticized now, and he's used to handling it. He's handles it like a master. And he's staying connected with God, and he's saying, okay, you guys, listen. Do you realize what you're doing to the people? You're starving them. You're taking everything from them. Why don't you not do that? And then they get mad at him. And he said to them, you guys are full of old men's bones. Do you know what that means? You're living like your fathers. There is nothing in you that's changing. You're doing everything you've always done because your father did it. You're not listening to God. You're not trying to do something different. You're just doing the same old stuff. And then he left. And then he went to the people who would listen and that wanted him. And he was fed by the poor people throughout the country. Everyone loved him that was willing to listen. But I want you to hear he did not hide his divinity. So when we know we're fabulous and wonderful, and we know we live forever and we're divine, when our security is threatened, or our political position is threatened, or our love position is threatened, are we ready to stay divine? Are we ready to shut our eyes and say, God, I find myself in a difficult situation. Let your love move through me now. Whatever needs to happen, let it happen. Think about it. Have you done that? Patrick and I have been together a long time, 26 years. I do not know how many times our relationship came to an impasse. That means irreconcilable. Impasse. Not going to go one more day. We got problems here. Impasse. And we both had to shut our eyes and say, Thy will be done, God. If it needs to be, it will be, but let it be in love. Let us live to another level of love, not to save this relationship, but to do love, to be in love. 26 years. And I'm here to tell you, if it were not for God, we would not be together. If Cindy Human was in charge of this, oh no. Because Cindy Human only knows what Cindy Human knows. She doesn't know divine, she doesn't know God, but she knows to turn to God. Do you see the difference? That divine light where we turn to God. And if God said separate, we would have. If God says stay, we would have. Because we're in the divinity of it. Do you see? Okay. Jesus had to bring the Father's language to us so the Father's language could come through us. So that everything that we approach in our world has that divinity in it. His death created a bridge. His life created a language. Do you realize that? When he crossed over, he took the beautiful energy of human consciousness to the divine. And that allowed the divine to come through human even stronger. But while he was here, he created the language of love. A language that we could actually use, not just to tell somebody how we feel, but to use to talk to God. A language to speak to God. You realize love is the only language. You know, I read for people all over the world. I used to have a contingency in Germany that I'd read for, and they didn't speak English. I would either tape it or have an interpreter on the other line, because I didn't need to speak their language, because Spirit doesn't speak language. They could ask me a question in English, and I could give them the answer based on just going into their soul, looking around what's happening, and tell them what I see. Didn't matter if they were Russian or German, doesn't matter what they spoke. Because it's all information. And it's all universal love. Does that make sense? When we are honoring Christmas, we are honoring that beautiful baby energy, that beautiful baby energy of Jesus. And I have a hypothesis. I think that we love Christmas so much because we're still infants. I think in our Christed evolution and walk, we are still the babes in the cradle. You know, we're not walking on water yet. We're not doing all the demonstrations that he did, but we are developing that ability to know that we're God's child, the ability to be held in the arms, the love of Father, Mother, God. And so that infant is us, that beautiful baby. That is us. That's where we are. And to celebrate that moment that his consciousness permeated our race consciousness to be born is amazing. And if you understand race consciousness and you understand vibration, there had to have been such a spike in the race consciousness. There had to have been an opening, a spike that occurred for the faith and love of all the people on the planet that were waiting for him. So he could bring that purity down and be born. You know? So it wasn't fighting race consciousness as it came. Do you all understand that? Okay. All right. We are still the infants being held in God's heart. We are the purity of the Christ child. And in order to really understand how to take that to the next level, we have to be that purity 24/7. Simple? This is what they said. He came to teach man that they are spirit, a part of an everlasting kingdom, and that they are love. We are greater than our human years. And if we bring that greatness here, we can have that divine life that he had. If we live as if we are divine, we can have that divine life that he had. There was a thing going around on the internet several years ago. It was beautiful, it was long. The only thing I remember about it is God speaking to mankind, right? Letter to mankind. The only part I remember was this. God said, you live as if you're never going to die, and you die as if you've never lived. You live thoughtless of tomorrow, thoughtless of yourself as spirit, thoughtless of any accountability or responsibility. That's how we live. But when we die, wait! I'm not ready! We're not aware of our divinity. We're not aware of the great energy of our souls and spirits. And that's what he came to teach us. I know that a lot of us were there when it happened, when the birth occurred. Yes?
Yes.
And if you were not there in embodiment, you were probably there watching in the ethers. Because everybody wanted to be there. Everybody wanted to see this great, beautiful birth. So we were all celebrating this light, this being who could come and bring divinity, perfection, love, and peace into the human body. We celebrated it then, we celebrate it now. But today's celebration should also engulf us. Celebrating the birth of the Christ, and now celebrating our growth of the Christ within our hearts. Does this make sense? Okay. So, when you have your ornament moment, like I have, that moment when your heart opens and you're so excited, and it could be anything, but it will happen to you, you know that. But when your heart starts to open, I want you to consciously realize, I am making a commitment now to become this energy that I feel. Do you see how simple that could be? I'm going to become what I feel. And that is Christing. Let's go within. Put your feet on the floor. And God, we ask that your light enfold each one. And I truly acknowledge that love of Jesus Christ. And I want you to feel yourself held in God's love, held in a column of light, your own arc field. Feel yourself safe. And welcome the presence of Jesus Christ into your personal field, into your space. You may see him physically, you may just feel an energy or presence, it doesn't matter. As you welcome him in, notice the purity of his heart. And be receptive as he places his hand on your heart. And feel in that moment that you are one. The love that was in Jesus Christ is in you. The heart and the goodness that was in Jesus Christ is in you. And just feel that you are so ready to be that beautiful babe, to be held in the love of God, to be nurtured and supported. A beautiful babe. And just feel as he just steps to the side and a vision opens before you. And just see your own life. Whatever picture comes is appropriate. And realize that where you are in your life, in this picture, there is greater. There is always greater because you are there. And let your heart energy bless that picture, bless that part of your life. Breathe and let it go. Feel the Christ by your side. Feel your heart open. Father, Mother God, we ask that that beautiful language of love, that connection to you, be established. We ask that our intuition open, so we walk in the divine plan of peace. And feel whatever feeling you get. Feel the words moving through you. I will follow my heart. And I will grow my Christ. Breathe and let your focus come back to that beautiful arc field. Feeling the chair that you sit on. Feeling your own personal love for God. And God, I ask that you guide each this day in a greater celebration than they could possibly plan alone. And I thank you for this. And so it is. Breathe, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. I hope that as you walk toward your Christmas day, that you have many, 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 many fabulous moments of yay God and yay me.